Ooh. What's up guys, Rich Duberbash. I'm out here in the garage. Just wanted to go over my latest build here. Basically I decided to convert my little race buggy that I wasn't really running into a little road beast. So this ended up being a super fun build guys. It's pretty simple to do. I just want to go over basically what this rig is and kind of some of the little mods I did to kind of make it the way it is now. So here's a shot of the original body guys, and you'll recognize this as a Tekno EB 48.4. Absolutely awesome race buggy, handles brilliantly on the track. Basically I bought the buggy, put it together probably about 3 or 4 years ago to race on my buddy Eddie's track. The truck did absolutely awesome in buggy form guys, just an absolute little ripper. But unfortunately we kind of stopped doing our meetups for our nighttime races. So obviously I'm not trying to do any speed records with this build. I just kind of wanted to build the ultimate driving machine, so to speak. So many of you will recognize this body. Basically this is from Delta Plastics. It's a 1.5mm thick Lexam BMW M3 1/8 scale GT. You'll notice the wheels flare out just a little bit. That's because I went ahead and widened the stance of this sucker. She sits pretty low to the ground in the front, a little bit higher in the rear. So this was kind of another quick paint job so far. I'm pretty happy with it. Really like the rear of the body though, how this flares out at the fenders. The paint scheme has a little bit of a cloud effect, which is really cool. This is my second time using this paint color. Essentially this is it here. It's PS49 and it's sky blue anodized aluminum. I went ahead and backed it with silver, and obviously I blacked out my windows. So instead of following the cut line that goes upward a little bit here, I went ahead and left this like lower piece. It's a little on the thin side. I just thought it sat nicely and want to kind of give it a go at speed. Ditto for the front lip as well. I think I was supposed to cut this a little taller, but I'm digging it right now. This color's kind of a trip. Indoors it tends to kind of look silver on camera. Outdoors has definitely got that nice blue pop. So here's a look at the truck on the inside. You'll see I did a custom bumper job that I'll go over. I also elected to use V2 Arma Typhon shocks. They're a little bit shorter than the Tekno shocks, but you'll see it actually put my arms at kind of a perfect level for nice drifting and just kind of a low stance. Right off the bat, you'll notice this awesome fan setup. Huge shout out to Mike with Gamechanger RC. Again, he partnered with Kimberly with Basher Queen. You'll notice the carbon fiber on here. This will be the first time I've actually used this ultra powerful Typhoon setup. Where the double fan setup is positioned, it actually cools the motor and my ESC nicely. In a shakedown test in my front yard, I got my motor up to about 150, 160. Since putting this on, the highest I've got the sucker is about 110. Here's the fan in action, guys, but you'll see this thing just moves an absolutely ridiculous amount of air. It basically cools everything off in the entire chassis bay. For these Gamechanger RC fan setups, it is best to have like a dedicated LiPo. This is a 1300 milliamp. I think it's a 30C or 50C. So for electronics, I'm running a Hobbywing 2200 in here. I've got a Castle Mama Monster X. For servo, I've got a ProTech 130T. Still running the stock Tekno braces front and rear. You'll also notice I've got a plastic spur in here, and so far this is held up. I haven't done any really hardcore testing, just pretty much in the neighborhood. Definitely excited to kind of put this sucker to the test in a big open space. So you'll notice my pinion there. That's a 25 tooth Robinson Racing Extra Hard. I'm going to go ahead and stick with the plastic spur for now, guys, just see how this hangs. This is definitely the largest pinion I could fit on here and still keep a good mesh with the stock Tekno motor mount. For now, guys, I've got kind of a worn out set of DeBoots Hoons on here. You'll notice though this thing's definitely got a really nice stance. Essentially I had to remove the stock wheel hexes to get proper fitment on here. Before I put the M2C hexes on, basically I was getting some kind of rubbing here in the back. I was definitely binding up on the hardware here. You'll see when you turn in. That nut and the screw here on the front knuckle were definitely digging into the wheel until I put the wider hex on. And again, here's a shot of these just beautiful universal hexes. These fit a whole assortment of trucks. Huge shout out to Mitch and Avery Looper. You'll see compared to the stock hex though, just how much lateral gain you get with these on. So aside from just wanting to get this thing out of the RC graveyard I had at the house here, guys, I really picked this thing to do a conversion just because it's super light. The transmission is butter smooth. The steering is super precise. I just figured this thing would make an ultimate road build. As far as the body mounts go, I went ahead and used a spare MT410 mount I had laying around. I went ahead and cut the center part and basically just bolted this on here. But you'll notice I went with the Proline body posts. I really do like these screw cap style that just kind of secure the body down. I definitely had to shave some plastic to make this fit right. It was not that big of a deal. I just used my bench grinder, took about a 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter off each corner. Here's a shot of the Proline body mounts I've used through the years, guys. Basically, these are for a slash 4x4. Once again, I use these little axial silicone shock bushings just to get perfect fitment from the Arma shock cap to the Tekno standoff. So for my rear body mount setup, I decided to go ahead and utilize the stock wing mount. You'll notice I swapped on the Arma plastic little wing supports. I had to drill out my own hole to get the bolts to line up, but basically all I did was I used a longer grub screw and I kind of fastened it down here with a little extra support using an M4 nut. I used some plastic spacers here and went ahead and just put on a little bit of Lexan support for the body to rest on. Here's a shot with the Proline body caps on and about position from the windshield here in the front. So in the rear here, guys, unfortunately, I had tried to use the stock Tekno wing support and I thought I could fudge it right there at this little window margin. But when I went to spin my caps on, I didn't account for this angle on the window and it just wasn't going on easily. It was basically smashing the window. Hence the Arma wing supports. I was basically able to fudge those backward a little bit more and hit this flat part of the body. Huge shout out to my brothers on the Arma forum. I basically got the idea for using this Mugen bumper following a Typhon 6S build thread. Here's a shot of the two Mugen Seiki bumper parts I needed. It was E2413 and E2414. You'll see from the side I was able to get this bumper to sit pretty much straight forward. I definitely had to do some customization. I don't know if I can get a shot of this, but to clear my sway bar little swivel piece, I basically had to take some plastic off here, use my Dremel, just used a barrel sander, and I also had to kind of fudge these holes here. They didn't line up perfectly with the bulkhead. These holes were pretty close here, but I essentially had to fudge the screws inward, probably a 0.5 millimeter per side. What I did is I just used a little drill bit and kind of ovaled these out to get them perfectly lined up. You'll notice there's a little gap here as well. I went ahead and used Italian 6S shock limiting spacers. They kind of come in a rebuild kit, but I used those and it ended up working perfectly. So here's a shot of my bumper setup from underneath. You'll notice that I used a piece of Kydex. I essentially had to kind of just custom cut this piece. I think I started at like 2.5 wide by 3 inches long. I ended up having to keep cutting this down until I got the angle of the bumper right. I also wanted my Kydex to abut perfectly with this little Mugen piece, which it does now. I was able to kind of countersink my holes, no problem with this. And then I went ahead and used these two existing holes as basically pilot holes. And then I was just barely able to clear the A block here and go ahead and lock these down with some M4 lock nuts. And then I shoved in my own piece of custom foam off of an Arma Felony. You'll notice from my race time, I still have my little skid plate on the back. This is a DE Racing skid plate. Doesn't really require any longer screws. It's actually really thin. I just want to point this out though, because I used one of these to basically trace my holes on my Kydex. It made this job a whole lot easier to get these holes really lined up perfectly with my bulkhead. Here's a shot of my last road build, guys. This is a Typhon 6S based absolute little screamer. I just wanted to mention I've been testing these prototype 7075 center drive shafts for quite some time now. It's actually been months, and so far they've done absolutely brilliant. They spool up super fast. I'm not really sure if I mentioned this in previous videos or not. Hopefully we'll see these little buggers out as an M2C Racing option sometime soon. Lastly, I just want to give a shout out to my friends with 3D RC. They just sent me an assortment of different parts, both 6S wing mounts, little bumper support here, and then an 8S wing mount to go ahead and try out. These are all custom 3D printed parts, so I'm going to be trying these out here, testing them soon. All right, guys, here for shakedown number 1. It's about 97 degrees. I brought my other rig as well. Feels like there's a little wind picking up, so we'll see how this goes. Well, she moves pretty nice, guys. I just got to get used to driving her. Oh. All in all, she handles nice. Ooh. Well, that was rough. But she got her first scratches. Yeah, she looks good. Yeah, it moves pretty good. Take care. Man, I thought I was gonna hit that curb. Ooh. Oh. Well, I will say she takes a pretty good tumble, guys. Yeah, the turning is just so fast with this thing, though. It's going to take a lot of practice to really get used to it. Oh, thanks, man.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Put a Tahoe shell on it now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh yeah, man.
Hey,
Have a good one.
all right, you too.